doing a Raku workshop. So Raku pottery differs from other pottery because it's a low-fired pottery. So we've just got a very small, simple kiln down here made of kale wool, ceramic fibre, and we're firing with a pig singer, which is like a flamethrower with a gas bottle. So, and we're feeding in little bits of wood. Just to make a reduction. So a reduction is when you put too much fuel in the kiln and the fire can't use up all the fuel, so you have an excess of fuel, and it's called reduction. So we're putting the odd piece of wood in, and the kiln now is up to about 600 degrees, we can tell just by looking in the atmosphere, and once it gets to 1000 degrees the glazes will start melting, and so you'll be able to just carefully look in and you'll just see a bit of shininess on the glaze, and you know that it's ready then. So then I have a big leather apron and leather gloves and tongs. So I use these, take the lid off, take the pottery out, and then I put them to a reduction medium. So a reduction medium is something like straw, leaves, sawdust, seaweed. They all do a slightly different thing. You want to put your burning hot pot, like the pot has to be so hot that when you're taking it out of the kiln, the glaze is almost dripping off it. So you have to be very careful and very direct. You have to know exactly where you're going. That you're not going to trip over, back into someone. You take it out, you put it into a drum of some sort of, it's got a metal drum, something with a lid is good. We put a layer of combustible material on the bottom, we put on our pots, then we put more combustible material on the top, and as soon as the pot is inside the combustible material, it will catch a light to the sawdust, and then there's no, it soon exhausts all the air inside that compartment, and then the fire starts looking for oxygen in other places. It can't get it from the atmosphere, it starts taking it out of the body and out of the glaze, and that's called reduction, and that's how you get beautiful copper effects. And then about 5 minutes in the reduction medium, still extremely hot, use gloves, take it out of there, put it in some water and quench it, and then you can rub the excess oxide off. And if it's something like an apple crackle, if you want to accentuate that, you can use a little bit of soot or some Indian ink or a bit of black oxide and rub that in, and basically that's it. But Raku isn't really good for practical things, it's more for an ornamental thing, so don't go making it for a cup of tea, it's not going to work.
So what about if you want to oxidise it rather than reduce it?
Okay, so oxidising, you take it out of the kiln, and then you just let it cool somewhere and then quench it with the cold water, so you don't reduce it. And that the effect with copper is if it's oxidised it's green, and if it's reduced it's like copper, like real copper. Beautiful.
With this particular Raku, can you throw a bit of straw? Thank you. Raku, just a little bit, thanks. Yeah. I think it might have been a bit more of a party trick. You could do it fast.
No gloves. Wow, that's way.
Art portraits. Oh, that's nice. So is this the reduction or the oxidation? Thank you, lady.
Lots of smoke. Gonna pull the nails out.
No, but I mean that you're not trying to even it out, are you?
No, just sort of wake it up. Really.
You're just not flat. You're basically just bullying it, aren't you?
Like that. That's all right. Practice turning it around, turning it over.
Consolidating it,
Yeah.
getting the cracks out.
Oh, and you're trying to make it into a hunk.
Or just a blob. Yeah, just sort of knock it into shape, I think is the terminology. Yeah. So my clay is quite firm, yours is quite soft.
Yeah,
Try
it's
to
quite
pop
soft.
around.
Oh yeah.
This is really soft.
I think Yums is even softer
Yeah.
because when I grabbed that it felt really sticky coming out of the bag.
Yes.
So you grab that,
Right.
had a dry piece of each over here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that
because the
helps.
clay
That's
is-
quite wet, that bit of bench.
Yeah, because the clay is wet, but the wood is dry, it'll absorb the moisture from the clay
Oh, I see.
and firm it up a little bit.
How firm? So you need to firm it up before the wheel.
Yeah.
But then on the wheel you're adding water.
And what I really want to do is just get your hands in the clay
Yeah.
and get you feeling the clay and
Right.
start getting some messages moving back and forth
Yeah.
before we even get to the wheel.
Right.
So that it's not just a complete surprise once again when we get on the wheel. A lot of this clay is actually quite soft, sodden.
So you're using the water not just as a medium to thin the clay down, but also as a lubricant,
Yeah.
aren't you? When
The
you
water.
when you're
Yeah.
when you're spinning. So if you started off with really wet clay, it wouldn't hold the shape while you were throwing
No,
it,
it
would
just
you?
fall apart. Yeah, yeah. It needs a certain amount of strength. The clay, kind of body built into it.
Yeah.
So, do you want us to consolidate or keep them separate?
Yeah, chuck it all together.
Together.
Well, that's a bit soft down the bottom. So if you put those together, yeah, that surprised me a bit being that soft.
Brown cake for lunch.
Oh,
If only this were a cake.
okay, that should do. Okay, bring your blobs of clay with me.
So, because there are 3 wheels, there's 1 kick wheel and 2 electric wheels. The kick wheel looks harder and it's a manual wheel. You actually have to use your leg to move the wheel round. But I like manual, not pedalling. It would be okay, good if it was pedaling.
Kick it with your right
One
foot.
leg, yeah. But I like the kick wheel because you have a lot more control. But I thought the people who've had throwing experience, so Sonia, Katrina and Nano, you've all had good throwing experience, so you 3 could be on the kick wheel to start with. And so, but we can change. So if you just go on your group of 3, an hour each, change, we're not going to keep any of the pots. So all you're doing is practicing. So you're just going to throw cylinders, that's what I'd be doing. Throw a cylinder, so you want a cylinder about that high and a water. So you throw your cylinder, Pete will show you how. You cut it in half with a wire, you look at it and say, "Ooh, actually that bottom was too thick. Next time I'll address that." So different hand movements. When you finish doing your throwing, I like plaster bats, but Pete doesn't, so we're just going to put our clay onto a wooden bat, dry it out, because that's for the next person. So we can recycle that clay again and again and again. So
saying that the Indian children produce masses of chai cups for daily use.
Millions required at the railway stations.
Yeah, they just blow them.
Some of those children are very, very, very good. Have you seen that? Have you been there?
No, I haven't.
Seen that?
Oh,
There's a few clips on YouTube, and they're just, at the
Yes.
time it's taken me to make 3 of these, they would have made 30. They're just, you know, they might be 10 years old or less. Just phenomenal.
So do they have a kiln at the railway station or something, or how do they fire them?
Yeah, just a bonfire.
Yeah, it's
very low fire,
bonfire.
very primitive
Okay.
sort of stuff. Just enough to hold that cup of tea,
Yeah.
one cup of tea.
Yeah.
It's just like a
Like a paper cup almost.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So make that come up and down, just that little piece there.
The central piece?
Yeah, and just stop it from wandering around. See if you can stop it, keep it really steady. But it's still got a wobble in it. Can you get rid of the wobble? And now push it down, keep his arms on it. Keep that at 1 speed, and just try and hold it at that speed.
Where are we putting?
Just here?
Yeah,
Yes,
perfect.
proper,
Good. You can have a
my
little
neighbour's
bit more on the
little
inside, just a
girls.
bit missing on there.
So she made this.
interested to see.
Perfect.
Cute, eh?
It's lovely.
Isn't it? This clay, I'm just loving it.
Oh.
Jen,
It is
like,
amazing.
I
As
wanna,
soon as I saw
wanna,
that,
like,
we were Ooh.
huh?
It looks like
Wrap it
that
with
would
seaweed.
be yeah.
Just
Just milk pots really don't need any glaze at all, do they?
No, I don't glaze them.
No.
scientists for
Yeah.
the next 50 years trying to work
Yeah,
out
puzzling
what
over.
language this was.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
in the far north, 2020 when the world came to an end.
That's right. Well, it certainly did go somewhere this year.
So we are part of the Art Society. So Reg is actually the president. I'm vice
Is
president.
this the Kaitaia one?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So Art Society, and our job is we are the flux between the people and the artists. So we do liaison. I like Oscar Wilde when he said, you know, with no shame whatsoever, there are some people you never want to see again in your life. Quite. Yeah, a nerdy thing about colour. This is just a weird nerdy thing. I love weird nerdy science. Why do we see colour? Okay, people might already know this, but it's just a fascinating thing. Colour comes in through the sun, the gamma rays. Okay, gamma rays are either the long ones, which is the infrared, or the short ones, which are the ultraviolet. Okay, we've got infrared and ultraviolet, all coming in at different rates. When they come in onto our planet, when they hit the surface of something, the molecular structure of that surface predicts what colour we see through our eyes. So, the plants, they can only absorb the infrared and the ultraviolet. They can't absorb any of the middle of the spectrum, which is all the green spectrum. So that's why when we look at the plant's green, because that's the bit that it doesn't need, that reflects back into our eye. So in theory, everything is colourless, and we're even colourless. And it's funny, you turn the light on and off, you know, it's like, no, that can't be true. You paint that red, it has to be red even when it's dark, but no, it's not. Things are only colourful when the light's shining on something. Yeah, it's not coloured. And what we're doing with the glazing is that we're actually changing the molecules. So when the light shines onto it, it's changing the molecular structure of that surface. So it changes it absolutely just by one element. And the good example of that is this cobalt. So this cobalt is just sort of a grey colour. Yeah, so that doesn't look like anything. It just looks like that. But when it's on there and fired, look, it's blue. So just by changing one little tiny bit, it is the most smallest spheric of a amount in there, it's changed the surface. So that's what that's you know, that's the way that light and colour work, and it's just an amazing thing. Because it's just to get your head around that actually, you know, everything is colourless, and it's only whatever the surface doesn't need is reflected back into our eyes. And it's like with people, when you look at someone and you say, oh, they look healthy, it's because the beta keratin and the keratin in their skin, the vitamin A, isn't it? Is reflected back in your skin, because when the sun's shining on it, you are overloaded with that element, and so it shines back out of your skin because you don't need it, it's not absorbed into your skin. And there's another amazing thing about colour, in that people who can't see can experience colour. It is unbelievable, but it's a proven thing now that you can actually feel colour, and it must be the vibration. And there's plants in the Amazon that obviously can't see because they don't have eyes, but they grow to camouflage themselves, to stop things from eating them. They grow and camouflage themselves to the tree that they're growing on. Yes. And
some people see music in colour.
Definitely, and it's synesthesia, and I don't know, I haven't talked to Pete about it, but I have a little bit of that. And when I'm painting well, which is just, I haven't done it for ages, but when I'm painting really well, it's really interesting when I've got the painting verb on and I'm just painting constantly, I can look at a hillside and it's amazing. I have my palette on my arm and I have all my primary colours, and I'm looking at my picture, I'm looking at the hillside that I'm painting, and I often doubt myself, how the hell am I doing this? But I'm looking at that whole green, there's probably 30 different shades of green on that hill, which I'm painting, which my eye, collecting information, going down to my hand, I can almost taste the colour. So I'm looking around and I'm thinking a little bit sweeter, a little bit more sour. And it's like the hot colours are the sweet ones and the cold colours are the sour ones. And so I can taste it in my mouth, how to mix it. And I'd stand there and I think I doubt myself, like, how the hell did I do that? You know? But it's a training thing. And like if you see it in the way of that, because obviously I'm just very heightened, I've got that heightened sense of colour just because I'm doing it all the time. But if you're a musician, and if you heard something on the radio and you'd say, oh, you heard him playing a Stradivarius in the Carnegie Hall and he's playing it in B minor and it's a rainy day, it's the same thing. It's because you're just getting all that information, because a lot of our senses, we're just dumbed down because we don't need them. Yeah, so yeah, it's just an interesting nerdy thing about colour, which I just find fascinating. So the other thing is we're going to do glazing, that's our priority thing in firing.
Slip. That's already got slip on it.
Yep, so now you can do a decoration. You could do, this is blue, this is going to be black, and that's going to be green. And then this is sort of purple. Yeah, well, that's not exactly purple, but if you look to
Oh
the
no,
right,
I love that one, but what I don't believe is that I'm going to be able to get 3 different colours on here, and should I?
well, you could.
I'm thinking of a the Greek
Yes.
pots with
Well, you could just do a
just
band of
two-
colour.
with 2 colours.
Yeah.
I thought maybe I'd try and get some colour in there, like you said, and
Yes.
wipe it off,
Yes.
and then just do another colour over it.
Yes.
Would I leave any of it?
Plain? Oh, yes. I think so. I think a bit of colour, if you have some plain, then you have like, the colour pops out more,
Okay.
an area of rest.
So that's the blue.
So I would dip the whole thing in a base glaze, and then I would put the, well actually, because we can't see that, so these 2 are the base glazes here, I would paint that on now, with the blue or the purple, whichever one. And then, this is the cobalt, this is the real dark blue.
And that's a lighter blue.
That's sort of purplish.
And that is
That's going to be green.
green.
Yep, that's going to be copper.
And
And that is going to be sort of browny purple. That's black copper oxide. Do you feel like glazing something?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Hard and fast.
Yep.
Whack it on.
harder.
So in terms of something I've done a slip with already,
Yep.
so if I
You can either go shiny or not shiny.
put the colour all over it,
Yep.
then it would
Yeah,
stick
I'd
out more
love
on the
to.
white and not on
Yeah.
that, wouldn't it? Yeah, cool.
Yep, definitely.
Um,
I'll just say about this.
Yep.
So this is, if you imagine this is glass, so this is going to be the shiny bit. So for a box like that, you need to wipe it off the rim, because otherwise that's going to stick onto
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I just did.
yeah, yeah.